the father with a deadly illness, and his daughter's actions that he can never forget. Don't forget to subscribe to the Stories of Life's Acts channel. And before we continue this story, let us know where you are from. If you enjoy stories like this, make sure to subscribe as we release videos every day at 12:30 p.m. in a peaceful suburban area of the United States, the home of Mr. John sits nestled under the shade of ancient oak trees, with distant rolling green hills in the background. It is a small but warm house, filled with laughter and happy memories. This simple, cozy atmosphere is never absent from their family dinners. Everything around them seems to always be the safest place for John and his wife, Laura. John is a middle-aged man, tall with sun-kissed skin and calloused hands from years of hard labor in the construction industry. Though he may appear tough and strong, to others he is a wonderful father, a loving and sincere husband. John always knows how to create a warm family atmosphere with his humorous stories, shared meals, and tight hugs whenever someone feels down. He is the first to wake up in the morning to prepare breakfast for the family and the last to go to bed after ensuring everything is settled. Laura, his wife, is a beautiful, gentle, and hardworking woman. She has been by John's side for over 25 years, building a happy and cozy family. Laura is not the type of woman to raise her voice, but she has her own way of making others feel loved and protected. She has always been a strong pillar of support, a companion through all the years, despite life's many challenges. She worries about her husband's meals and takes care of their daughters every step. Not only is she a mother, but Laura is also Emma's close friend, always listening and understanding her. Emma, their only daughter, is the pride of the family. She's a beautiful, intelligent girl full of life. Her long brown hair is always neatly tied, her bright eyes sparkle, and a smile is always on her face, no matter the circumstances. Emma is not only academically gifted, but also very caring, always looking after those around her with a sincere heart. On afternoons, she often sits in the garden, helping her mother water the plants and chatting with her father about school stories. Every time John looks at Emma, he feels like the luckiest man in the world. They often go for walks in the park on weekends. John and Laura walk ahead, hand in hand, while Emma runs around, flies a kite, or chats with her friends. These are the happy afternoons they will never forget. That small family always finds joy in the simplest things, from a family meal to quiet evenings spent together, sharing stories of the day. In their home, love is the most important thing they cherish. Every year, on special occasions like Thanksgiving or Christmas, they gather together. Their family dinners are always filled with laughter and stories about Emma's childhood memories. John and Laura always treasure these moments, as they are rare times when they can pause and enjoy the simple pleasures without being caught up in the whirlwind of work or busy lives. On every birthday of Emma, John is always the first to wake up early to prepare a special breakfast for his daughter. He always remembers the little things that Emma loves, from the chocolate cake she enjoys the most to the small gifts he knows will make her smile brightly. He loves his daughter so much that he always wants to do the best for her, even if it means sacrificing his own desires. Their annual summer vacation is also a favorite family tradition. Every year, they spend a few weeks traveling, exploring new places, and every time they return, they have funny stories and joyful family photos. There is nothing more precious than these moments together, and they always understand that. Although John's work is hard, sometimes with days of exhaustion from construction projects lasting for months, every time he returns home, all the stress melts away when he sees Emma and Laura. Those tight hugs, the simple but heartfelt meals, everything makes John feel that family is where he truly belongs. They have faced many challenges in life together, from material difficulties to times when each person's heart carried its own worries. But no matter what, they have always been there for each other, a strong support for one another. John often reminds himself that he will spend more time with his family, especially with Emma, because he knows that time waits for no one. Each passing day, he becomes more aware of how valuable the moments with his family are. Every time Emma tells him, "Dad, I love you," his heart fills with happiness. and he always replies with the simple but sincere words, "I love you more than anything." These days pass by, and their family does not know that big changes are about to come. Something dark, something that John cannot foresee, is waiting for them ahead. But for now, all they know is that they have each other, and that is the most precious thing in life. Time passed, but the strange fatigue in John's body became more and more noticeable. At first, he thought it was just stress from his busy work. Every day he woke up early, worked tirelessly at the construction site, and came home late, exhausted. The persistent back pain and constant fatigue were not unusual for a man in his 50s like him. However, when these symptoms did not go away and only got worse, John began to feel that something was wrong. There were nights when he woke up in the middle of the night, feeling as though his body was no longer under his control. A shortness of breath, a dull pain in his chest, and sudden bouts of nausea made it impossible for him to sleep. Yet, he did not want to bother anyone. He continued to smile whenever Laura looked at him with concern, and he did not say anything to Emma, his only daughter, whom he always wanted to protect from worry. But the fatigue and pain kept growing worse. One morning, when he got out of bed, the dizziness forced him to grab the bedpost to steady himself. At that moment, he could no longer hide the truth. These signs were not simply a result of aging. He knew he needed to see a doctor. When the doctor delivered the results after a series of tests, John felt like a huge wave had shattered all hope. He was in the final stage of kidney failure, and without a kidney transplant, he would not survive for long. Everything seemed to spin in his mind, and he could barely hear the doctor's words anymore. It felt like the world around him suddenly collapsed, and the hospital room became a blur. "You need to find a kidney donor immediately if you want to live," the doctor continued to explain, but John could not absorb the words. His thoughts were overtaken by worries about his family. When he left the hospital, John could not hold back his emotions anymore. He sat alone in the car, his hands on the steering wheel, but unable to move. The sky outside was dark, and light rain began to fall, blending with the tears that would not stop pouring from his eyes. "So, am I going to leave soon?" he wondered in his mind, each question echoing in his head with no answers. How could he tell Laura and Emma that they would soon lose their father, their husband? How could he let his family know that he was standing on the edge of death? When he got home, John tried to stay calm, but inside, he was as torn as a fabric being ripped apart. That evening, Laura had prepared a hearty dinner as usual, and Emma sat at the table with a bright smile, telling her parents about the events at school. In that moment, seeing his daughter's radiant face, John's heart ached. He felt so weak for not being able to protect his family from the pain that was coming. During the meal, he still tried to act cheerful, joking with Emma and asking about the little things in her day. But the dull pain in his body made everything seem distant. John just wanted to push it all out of his mind. He didn't want Laura and Emma to know about his illness. He feared that if they found out, all the joy and peace in their home would disappear. After dinner, Emma and Laura cleaned up the kitchen, but John withdrew to his study. He needed time to think. He didn't want to see the worry in the eyes of his wife and daughter. They shouldn't have to carry this pain. In his study, John sat at his desk, his hand reaching for a pen as he began to write letters. Each letter contained his final words, the loving messages he could never say aloud. He wrote to Laura, to Emma, but not a single word mentioned his illness. What he wrote were memories. Deep thanks for having them in his life, for they were the only reason he felt his life had meaning. He wrote about the small gifts he had prepared long ago for Emma, gifts he hoped would make her remember the happy moments when he was still by her side. But even as he wrote those messages, John's heart felt heavy. He knew that, no matter how much he prepared, the inevitable truth could not be avoided. Death was approaching, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. He could only promise himself that he would continue to protect his family from this great pain by hiding the truth. The longer he could keep it hidden, the better. If possible, he wanted Emma and Laura to enjoy their last moments together without carrying this burden. A few days later, John's condition worsened. The back pain, fatigue, and dizziness became uncontrollable, preventing him from working like before. However, he still continued to pretend everything was fine. Whenever Laura saw him tired, she urged him to see a doctor again, but John just smiled and told her it was just a light cold. "Don't worry, I am fine," he said, though inside he knew he was hiding a terrible truth. On long nights, when the whole family had fallen asleep, John would lie awake, tossing and turning in bed. He couldn't sleep, couldn't stop thinking about what was coming. Every time he looked at his wife and daughter, his heart broke. He knew that if he told the truth, if he let them know about his illness, their family would fall into a tragedy that he could not save them from. Yet, each night he felt weaker, and deep inside there was a strong urge that maybe it was time to face the truth. One afternoon, while sitting in the living room, gazing out the window, John saw Emma playing with the family dog. His little girl, with her bright smile, had no idea that her father was facing a terminal illness. He couldn't help but feel heartbroken. And in that moment, he told himself that if he could do it all over again, he would never hide anything from his family again. But until that time came, he chose to remain silent. Each passing day, John continued to try to maintain a calm facade in front of his family. He pretended that nothing was wrong, keeping everything in the house as it always had been. However, each morning when he stepped onto the construction site, the pain would hit him hard, impossible to hide. He felt his body weakening, but he remained determined not to let anyone know. Every time he came home from work, he told himself that as long as he made it through the day, everything would be fine. He didn't want his family to live in worry and fear. Laura, his wife, was very perceptive. She always noticed the small changes in John's behavior. Although John tried his best to hide it, she could still sense that something was wrong. They had been together for so long, and she understood him better than anyone else. Recently, she noticed that he was often tired, breathing heavily, and frequently grimacing when moving. Laura increasingly felt that something was amiss, but she did not dare ask, fearing that if she did, John would just hide it even more. One evening, as John sat quietly at the dinner table, staring at his food without interest, Laura felt something was truly wrong. Gently, she asked, "Are you okay, John? You seem really tired." John looked up at her, his eyes avoiding hers. Her question felt like a sharp blow to his heart. He knew he couldn't deceive her forever. Still, he forced a smile and said, "I am just a little tired. Do not worry too much." Laura looked at her husband, her heart aching. Even though he said that, she could see the worry in his eyes. But instead of pressing him further, she decided not to make him more anxious. She knew that John was always strong, always able to face any challenge, and she wanted him to make his own decisions. Day by day, John continued to silently endure the increasing pain. But what bothered him more than the pain itself was the invisible anxiety he felt every time he looked at Emma. His beloved daughter was growing up, becoming a beautiful, strong, and promising young woman. But John knew that if he did nothing, she would have to face great pain when he was no longer there. Each time he looked at Emma, his heart ached even more. That was why he kept his illness hidden, because he didn't want his daughter to worry about a father who was slowly dying. Since Emma had noticed the strange signs with her father, she had always tried to understand his condition more. Although her father always said he was just a little tired, Emma sensed that something was wrong. She noticed that her father no longer seemed as lively as before, and there was something different in his eyes, as if he was hiding a big secret. Emma couldn't explain it, but she couldn't ignore it. She felt an emptiness growing in her heart. One morning, as she was preparing to go to school, Laura happened to overhear a conversation between Emma and a friend on the phone. Emma's friend mentioned that her father had just been hospitalized due to a serious illness. Suddenly, Emma asked, "Is it true that when you have an illness like that, you need to find a kidney donor?" Hearing this, Laura's heart sank. She immediately knew that Emma was starting to suspect something about John's health. After Emma left for school, Laura decided to call the doctor John had been seeing to inquire about her husband's condition. At first, the doctor gave a brief answer, but then Laura could not hold back any longer. She spoke with a trembling voice. "What is he sick with? Why has my husband been hiding everything from me?" The doctor recognized the worry in her voice and gently replied, "You should speak to your husband directly. John is facing end-stage kidney failure. We have advised him about a kidney transplant, but he has not made a decision yet." The doctor's response left Laura in shock. These words hit her like a sudden blow. She couldn't fathom that the man she had loved all these years had been silently suffering from a dangerous illness without ever sharing it with her. She felt as if she had been left in the dark, unaware of the important struggles her husband was facing. That evening, when John returned home, Laura could no longer stay silent. She decided to confront the truth, even though she knew it might hurt the family. She sat across from him in the living room, looking into his tired eyes, full of concealment. "John, why have you been hiding this from me?" she asked, her voice filled with pain. John looked up, slightly surprised to see the determination in her eyes. He wanted to continue avoiding the issue, but he felt he could not. Finally, he sighed, put his cup of tea down, and spoke. "I didn't want you and Emma to worry, Laura. I didn't want you both to carry any more pain." Laura took his hand, her eyes filled with tears. "But I am your wife, and Emma is your daughter. We are a family, John. We will face everything together." John looked at her, then gazed out the window where the evening light was fading. Everything seemed hazy at that moment. He could feel his wife's love and concern, but part of him still couldn't fully open up. The fear of hurting his family was too great, and he did not know if he could overcome this feeling of helplessness. The next day, Emma could not wait any longer. She decided to find out more about her father's condition. She knew that with the situation reaching this point, she couldn't just stand by and do nothing. A few days after the confrontation between John and Laura, Emma felt an indescribable anxiety in her heart. She began to notice small changes in her father, things she had never paid close attention to before. She realized that John was no longer as cheerful and full of energy as he once was. He was often tired, sometimes sitting in one place for the whole afternoon without doing anything. She could sense a sadness, a worry that he was trying so hard to hide. One day, when John was out, Emma decided to clean her father's room, hoping to find some clues about what he was keeping from her. While tidying up the items on his desk, she came across a pile of old papers, mostly letters and bills. However, one thing among them caught Emma's attention: a test result. Her heart clenched when she saw the words "end-stage kidney failure" clearly printed on the paper. Emma couldn't believe her eyes. She flipped the result over to make sure she wasn't mistaken. The words still stood unchanged. End-stage kidney failure. This meant her father was suffering from a dangerously incurable disease that she had never known about. It felt as if the world was crashing down around her. Instinctively, she took a step back, trying to breathe deeply to stay calm, but she could not stop the tears from flowing. She sat down on the bed, still holding the test result, and in an instant, the greatest fear she could ever imagine overwhelmed her. Was her father going to die? The question kept repeating in her mind without any answers. She couldn't imagine life without her father by her side. He was the strong man who had protected her all these years, but now he was facing an incurable disease. Emma stood up, the sense of confusion in her heart making it impossible for her to sit still. She walked out of the room, but she couldn't shake the thoughts of her father's illness. She glanced back at his room, filled with so many family memories, and realized that she might lose all of that in the blink of an eye. Unable to keep the secret any longer, Emma decided she had to talk to her mother. She couldn't bear the pain alone, and she couldn't let Laura continue living in uncertainty. She understood that, no matter how heartbroken her mother would be, she needed to know the truth. As soon as her mother arrived home, Emma could not wait any longer. She grabbed her hand and led her to a secluded corner of the house where it was just the two of them. The atmosphere in the room seemed thick, so tense it felt like it could be cut with a knife. Emma looked into her mother's eyes, her voice choking as she tried to speak. "Mom, I just found out something. Dad has end-stage kidney failure. I found his test results. Did you know? Laura froze, her eyes wide with shock and confusion. Just a moment ago, she had believed that everything was just because John was tired from work. But now, hearing her daughter say the truth, she felt as if she had been stabbed in the heart. The world around her seemed to spin. In a long, silent moment, she could not find the words to speak. The words caught in her throat, unable to escape. "What? Dad, why didn't he tell us?" she asked, her voice weak and trembling. Emma nodded, tears beginning to fall. She couldn't stop crying. The feeling of helplessness made her feel like she was about to collapse. She felt so weak, unable to do anything for her father. Just moments before, she had been the joyful, optimistic girl she had always been. But now she felt as if she was standing at the edge of an enormous abyss, unsure of what to do next. "What are we going to do, Mom?" Emma asked in despair. "We can't just let him die like this. You have to do something. How can we save Dad?" Laura looked at her daughter, a quiet pain creeping into her mind. Both of them knew that without immediate action, John would not have much time left. But the question was, could they find a matching kidney to save him? And would he accept the help if he knew? After a moment of contemplation, Laura spoke, her voice trembling with fear. "We need to talk to him, Emma. Your dad can't keep hiding this from us. But before we do anything, we need to make sure we can help him. We need to find a way, maybe a kidney transplant from someone else." Emma looked up at her mother, her gaze full of determination. "Mom, I cannot just sit here and watch Dad die. I will do whatever it takes to help him, no matter what," Emma said resolutely, her heart filled with purpose. Laura looked at her daughter, her gaze soft but filled with concern. She knew Emma loved her father deeply, and she understood that her daughter would not give up easily. However, what she could not say out loud was one of the only ways to save John would be for one of them to donate a kidney. But she couldn't bear to think of that, and she couldn't bear to put Emma in a position to face such a sacrifice. The two of them began searching for ways to save John, though they did not know what would come next. They knew their time was running out. The peaceful days were about to end, and the fear of death loomed ahead. But Emma had made one decision. If there was a way to save her father, she would do anything. She loved him too much to let him go without doing something. And in those silent hours, Emma's greatest decision began to form in her mind. Emma decided that she could not hesitate any longer. She had to do something to save her father. Although she knew it was a huge decision, she understood there was no more time to waste. She began researching everything she could about kidney donation and the related processes. She was willing to do anything as long as it meant saving her father's life. One evening, when everyone had gathered around the dinner table, Emma decided it was time to speak with her mother. Laura had noticed the change in her daughter, but she still hoped it was just a temporary emotional reaction. She never expected that Emma had made such a strong decision. "Mom, I have thought it through," Emma began, her voice calm but full of determination. "I am going to donate my kidney to Dad. I'm going to do this." Laura looked up at her daughter, her heart seeming to stop. She couldn't believe it, and all she could do was silently look into Emma's steadfast eyes. No one in their family had ever imagined facing such a decision. Donating a kidney was not an easy decision, and it could be dangerous for the donor. Laura knew this well, but Emma seemed ready to do anything. "Mom, I can't let Dad die without doing anything. If there is anything I can do to save him, I will, no matter the sacrifice," Emma said, her eyes never leaving her mother's. Laura trembled, unsure how to react. Fear overwhelmed her. "Emma, you cannot do that. You still have your whole life ahead of you. How could I let you sacrifice like that?" "Mom, I know you are worried about me, but I cannot live without Dad. I love him so much, and if I can save him, I will," Emma replied. Laura choked up, unable to hold back the tears. She embraced her daughter, but inside, her heart was torn. She understood Emma's love for her father, but she could not bear to see her daughter face such a danger to save him. Everything felt like a never-ending cycle, where love and sacrifice intertwined painfully. "You are such a good daughter, Emma. But I can't lose you. I beg you, do not do this," Laura pleaded. Emma looked at her mother and gently replied, "Mom, I cannot stand by and watch Dad die. He has done so much for me, and now it is my turn to do something for him." In the end, Laura could only silently nod, with no other choice. She knew that Emma had made her decision, and no one could change it. But deep down, her heart was full of worry. She just hoped everything would be okay, and that Emma would not have to pay the price for this sacrifice. The day of the surgery drew near. After Laura and Emma had decided to share their plan with John, he was taken aback and deeply moved by his daughter's sacrifice. The whole family mentally prepared for the surgery, but deep down, John still could not accept that it was his own daughter who would be helping him. When the doctor announced that they had found a compatible kidney donor, the family felt a glimmer of hope. However, none of them spoke the truth about who the actual kidney donor was. John felt relieved to know that there might be a chance to extend his life. He thanked the doctor and everyone who had helped him, but deep inside, something still felt strange. The day of the surgery arrived, and the whole family was at the hospital. John was taken into the operating room with a heavy heart. He knew that his chances of survival were low, but at least he had come to terms with the fact that he would not have to fight alone anymore. When he woke up in the recovery room, John felt disoriented. His eyes fluttered open, and what shocked him was the sight of his daughter, Emma, sitting by his bed. She was wearing a patient gown, her face tired, but her eyes still held a glimmer of determination. John stared at her, his voice choked with emotion. "Emma, you." Emma looked at her father, her eyes unable to hide the worry and love she felt. "I can't lose you, Dad. I love you, and that is why I did this. I just want you to live, Dad." At that moment, John could not say anything else. He felt the silent tears fall from his daughter's eyes. He couldn't believe that she loved him this much. He tried to hold Emma's hand, his voice thick with emotion. "My daughter, why did you do this? I love you so much." Emma was silent, holding her father's hand tightly. She didn't need to say anything more, for everything had been expressed through her eyes and actions. She wasn't doing this out of obligation. She was doing it out of the boundless love she had for her father. She couldn't live a single day without him by her side, and she was willing to do anything to keep him alive. After the surgery, John's health gradually improved. As the days went by, he began to realize the importance of family and unconditional love. The family grew closer, overcoming fear and hardship together, confronting the truth that sometimes love is not just words, but actions and sacrifice. John looked back on his journey and realized that whether life is short or long, the moments spent with family are the most precious. Every additional day he could live was a gift, and it was all thanks to Emma's love and sacrifice. The family gathered together during the early spring days as the trees began to bud and the warm rays of the new season illuminated every corner of their home. Every moment together became special because they knew that family love could not be measured by anything, and they would create beautiful memories in the days ahead. John, Laura, and Emma all realized that even if they would face many challenges in the future, as long as they were together, they would never be alone. Family love is not just words, but sacrifice, understanding, and unconditional actions. And that was the strength that helped them overcome everything. Thank you all for watching until the end. If you enjoyed the video, do not forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss out on the best stories. See you in the next one.